Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 15 of Daffy's Roundtable. This week, we're joined again by another member of the Herpetoculture Network and co host of the Herpetoculture podcast. With a collection filled with beautiful Morelia and Colubrids, my guest for today is an incredible source of wisdom when it comes to keeping snakes. So, without further ado, everybody, please help me welcome Jacob Bratz of Longleafreptilia. Hello, hello, hello.
What's going on?
How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, man, no problem.
I got you at about time there.
No, I thought you were. I thought you were gonna keep me off a little longer. To be honest, I was
Uh,
like, oh, this is my vape real quick. No, it's okay.
Sorry about that.
No, man, I don't care.
All right. So to get right into it, I do want to ask you a couple of questions about like why the switch from JLB Morelia to Longleaf Reptilia. But before we get there, um, how did you get into reptiles?
How did I get into reptiles? So, I mean, I have a lot of the same stories everybody else. Basically, I grew up with a fascination of dinosaurs, like a lot of reptile people did. I took it to an extreme. Yeah, it was a whole thing. My mom loves to tell stories about that.
That's awesome.
But when I was about, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, I had a friend whose dad bred corn snakes and some eastern king snakes, all wild caught stuff locally. And he hatched out a bunch of baby corns, and I remember he just had like a whole pile of them in this, little critter keeper, and I was just enamored by these little snakes, and I couldn't stop playing with them. My friend would get mad at me because I would go over there and I would want to play with the snakes, and he wants to go outside and do stuff, and I'm like, man, come on, let me just play with the corn snakes.
And they're
But
adorable in that size too, and they're like freshly
yeah,
hatched.
freshly
Oh,
hatched. Oh man, especially when you're 7, 8 years old. At
yeah.
that time, the big ones are still kind of like, because you don't really mess with snakes a whole lot. But the little ones, man, the little worms are great.
Yeah.
Um, so from there, I wanted a pet snake, but my parents were not about it. My dad for a very long time was one of those people. The only good snake's a dead snake type of people. He's no longer that way. He actually identifies snakes very well today,
So
which is
you changed
I'm
them.
very proud. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he's
you
he's
should be
very
proud.
very good with the
Yeah.
snakes now. Yeah, no, I'm very happy. He sent me a picture not that long ago, and it was a hog nose. It was a couple months ago, and he sent me a picture. He's like, "Hey, this is a hog nose, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, good job, Dad. Nice." And but yeah, so I wanted a snake from then on out as a pet, and being young, my parents weren't about it, and so my mom's always been a big animal person, so she always advocated me having other pets to kind of scratch the itch. So I had geckos growing up for a while. I started with leopard geckos; those were my first reptiles. I've had a couple of those, had a few amphibians, had a little Newton frog tank for a while, and so I was doing stuff with that, and just to kind of scratch the reptile itch.
Yeah.
But I got to about 12, 13 years old, and I think about 12 was when I started getting like really serious about it. And by around 13, I think it was, I annoyed my parents enough to get me a snake because I was basically, I was on the internet every day looking at stuff, researching, watching videos. I just liked watching videos of all these things, and
To this
I was
day.
bringing, yeah, exactly, and I was bringing my parents up to these videos and these articles and all this stuff. Like, look what it says here about this one. Look, watch this, look, and so it was all like this convincing, and eventually they started warming up to it, and then I had to talk them into, what type of snake and what size, how big they get, and because they didn't want me to have anything big, and
Of course.
so long
So what
story
was it?
short, what was it? Yeah, my first snake was actually a corn snake. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay.
Yeah, no, that actually turned out very unfortunate. That was actually a pretty traumatizing snake as a young child. That snake, I'm sure people have heard this on the podcast, on my podcast, if you've listened to it, but that snake actually died in my hands.
Oh wow.
About like 3 months after I got it, I think.
Mhm.
It was weird. It was doing great for a while, and then I took it out of its cage one day because it was acting funny, and it just started doing a death roll, and it died
Wow.
right there.
Not a great
I
experience
was
for a 13, 14-year-old. No,
no. I
yeah.
think I cried for about 3 days because that was 5 years worth of convincing right there.
Right.
It just died in my hands.
That's
So that crushed me. But a couple months, it was probably only about 2 months later, I went and got a ball python, which I had that animal until college. And when I went to college, I had a few more after that. But in high school, I think at the most I kept was about 5 snakes. And then I think I had only had 5 or 6 through college. And then once I got out of college, that's when, things started
that's when the
getting
obsession began.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all downhill from there. So.
Awesome. And then from there, how did you get into when I first started listening to the Herpetoculture podcast, it seemed like the only thing you would keep were Morelia or like carpet pythons, that kind of stuff. So how
Mhm.
did you get into like the Morelia?
Well, the Morelia, so back even before I had snakes in general, I was doing all the research, watching videos, and I don't
Right.
know if you remember an old website, but it was called Reptiles TV.
Sounds
I don't
familiar.
know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
it's an old one, but they had some good info. I mean, I back then it was good. I don't know how it is now. I
Back
can't
then,
even
any
remember
info was
half
good
of it.
info.
Yeah, exactly. But they had a couple care videos on a few different things. They had corns, ball, and then they had a carpet python like video. It was like a cat. I can't remember if it was a care video or what. But I clicked out like, what's a carpet python? I clicked just this big, jungle carpet, I believe it was linking back, remember it. 'Cause I remember it, thinking now it was some type of, whatever it was, but it's some type of jungle mix, and it was big and hefty, and I just thought it was the prettiest snake I had ever seen in my life. It was just incredible, it was this black banding, it was very, very nice animal, and I was just like, that's it. Like that's the
That's the
snake.
one.
Like that's what I want. But upon doing more research, back then it was harder to do more in-depth stuff, especially about carpet pythons because there wasn't nearly as much out there as there is now.
For sure.
But upon reading, everything I was saying was they get 7 foot plus and they're mean, they're this, they're that. I still wanted one, but for somebody trying to convince their parents, let's
Not a first
get
snake
a
for somebody living
carpet
with their
python.
parents.
Exactly, exactly. So I sat on that for a while. I never had a carpet while I was living with my parents. And then while I was in college, I went to a reptile expo in Charleston, South Carolina. It was a very small show, hole in the wall. It's not even worth going to. But at the time, I was going to basically any show I could.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to Charleston. I actually went with my 2 corn snakes. I was looking because I had a pair of some more corn snakes. I can't remember what they were at the time.
You were looking to sell
But
them or buy a new pair?
I didn't really know. I was looking to hopefully do a little trading,
Do something like
whatsoever.
that.
But
Okay.
yeah, something of the sort. And so I was walking around the show, and this dude had this itty bitty carpet python, man. I'm talking baby. And I still knew nothing about the carpet pythons. I had basically forgotten about them because I
Hmm.
hadn't really seen. You don't see them at shows that often. I had been to several shows, throughout the years, but you never really saw carpet pythons that often.
Yeah. Eventually, you give up. You go like,
Um,
I guess I'm not gonna find them anytime soon.
right, exactly. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was in college still. I didn't have money. I wasn't really buying snakes, so it
Yeah.
wasn't really on my mind. I kind of
Definitely.
forgotten about them altogether. And I'm at the show and I see this little carpet python there, and I was like, "That's cool." I was like, "That's the snake I want." And he had it priced at like I don't know, 150 bucks or something like that. And again, a broke college kid didn't have 150
Yeah.
bucks.
Yeah.
I think I had like $50 on me. And I came up to this dude because he had a bunch of colubrids around and stuff. I was like, "Hey man, what's the deal with the carpet python?" And I talked to him about it for a little bit. I looked at him. I was like, "I'll give you a pair of corn snakes and 50 bucks." He's like, "What kind of corn snakes?" And I showed him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And I was like, "Sweet." So I traded him my corn snakes. I took him this little carpet python, and I just became obsessed. That was it. And from there, I still have that carpet python today.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's yeah, she's chilling at
Not
home.
tiny
She would
anymore.
be. What's that?
Not tiny anymore.
No, 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 no. She's yeah, she's definitely a good size now. I consider her very small for a carpet python, but I also don't feed large rats every week. So she is very on the, at least in my opinion, for her age, on the small side. But again, she eats medium rats, and she's very healthy. She's probably the strongest snake I own, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
She's something else. It's crazy. But yeah, she's a great animal. But from there, man, I mean, it's just spitballs with the carpets, and never got out of them. And I think that was 2015, I think is when I got that first carpet python. So yeah, going strong ever since.
Awesome. So are you still working
Yeah.
with them, trying to breed them?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
kind what
absolutely.
species are you trying to or are you working with?
So that's I work with poplin carpets more than anything.
Yeah.
Those have really been my, yeah, my squeeze per se over the last several years. And it's kind of funny that the way I got into poplins or IJs, Irian Jayas, whatever you want to call them. People call
And
them
they stay
Irian.
slightly smaller than the rest of the species, correct?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
they do stay slightly smaller. And I kind of got into them because the first carpet that I bought was labeled an Irian Jaya.
Okay.
And so I was like, ooh, first carpet, Irian Jaya, that's a thing. And it basically took that carpet for me to learn everything else about carpets, the subspecies and, all that stuff. And, so I learned from scratch based on that animal.
Right.
Well, so I learned all the subspecies. I was like, okay, since I have an Irian Jaya, I want to focus on Irian Jaya
Okay.
carpets, try to keep my focus there. Upon doing more research and learning more, I now know, or I soon figured out I couldn't label the animal I had as an
As an
IJ,
Irish.
like
Yeah.
at least like theoretically. And then the more I learned after, about a year or two, I'm like, this thing doesn't even look like a freaking IJ, and it doesn't. She has no resemblance to an IJ whatsoever, other than size, at least in my opinion.
Do you know what
She's
she
got
is?
she to me, she's got far more jungle influence than anything else.
Okay.
She's got some coastal looking patterning, so she's some type of mutt. She probably has a little bit of everything, to be honest.
Okay.
That's why she's a carpet python.
Full
That's why
stop right
that's
there.
why I tell
Yeah.
everybody that's it. She's just a carpet python. And that's why I tell
Yeah.
everybody, if you don't know, don't try and put a label on it. It's a
For
carpet and it's
sure.
awesome. And it's awesome just like that.
They are
But
great snakes. I agree.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I did more research into the poplin carpets and I just became she's in particular because of their size and the size is what drew me to them most at first, and then as I, dove deeper into them, I saw how much potential there is for so much, selective breeding within them that is just so untapped. And now they're really starting to throw out some amazing animals. People working with them, these captive bred, poplin carpets nowadays are, getting better and better with each generation. And they're the only carpet python we can still get wild caught blood from. We can still get imported poplin carpets. So that's a big plus. They're the only carpets that are coming out of that are from Indonesia. Anybody who doesn't know carpets as well, pretty much all carpet pythons except poplin carpets come from Australia, and there's no exportation out of Australia whatsoever. So poplins are basically the only fresh blood of carpets that we can get. So that was a big thing for me being able to do that. And it's also something about starting from scratch with I guess you call it, starting your own line
With
per
fresh
se,
blood.
exactly,
Yeah,
but so there's
100%.
something about starting from scratch, creating F1 animals from, wild caught or farm bred animals. There's just something about that speaks a little bit more to you. You feel very accomplished, achieving that. I have not produced F1s personally. I have, a few farm bred animals and a wild caught animal, but so it's definitely in the future. But
One day,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, one day for sure. And I take pride in the fact that I do have, wild caught farm bred animals. I think it's very cool. I enjoy them a lot, and I'm really looking forward to making, my first generation of carpets. At least from wild caught. I have produced carpets myself, but
Sure.
But then there's just a whole other slew of things within poplins the established captive breeding side, the stuff like the established lines, like GQ, M Pen, Poster Child, things like that. Those lines of poplin carpets.
That have been
I would
around
have
for
a
a
hard
while.
time finding. Yeah, exactly. But I would have a hard time finding anyone that did not to deny that. And some of those animals are some of the best looking carpets you've seen like ever. I don't know if anybody listening or if you've ever seen the poster child animal.
I can. We can
Um,
all see it right now.
if you can look it up, I actually might have a picture on my phone. I can send you somewhere. So if
Poster
you can look
child.
poster child, yeah,
Pop
spelled
one.
exactly like it sounds, one word.
Like poster child, pop one, carpet python.
That poster child something. That's where I've got lineage somewhere here. Hold on.
All right.
Can I
Sharing.
close out the screen? You stay there.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me look at this. I know I've got it in my notes somewhere.
Yeah. I'll figure out how to share the screen one. I did it before. There we go.
Did you find a picture?
Well, I figured out how to share.
Haha. Hold on 1 second. Let me. Always gonna make me dive deep. Hold up.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
Yeah, so I acquired a poster child and pen animal from a friend of mine, an adult female. And I hadn't really heard of poster child previously to receiving this animal. And I like to get any background I can on pretty much, all the animals I can on, all my captive bred stuff. So I got some pictures of the original poster child animal, and it's just absolutely incredible. I have to see if I can find this picture.
That is awesome. So I still diving into the world of learning about the different. Like I still struggle to tell the difference between jungle and a coastal, for example. Like I'm still
Hmm.
getting into the Morelia world and into the different locales and morphs and all that. But
Right.
I have not heard about poster child at all. So that's very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this
Yeah,
when you find it.
it's a specific line. I mean, I say it's a line. Just they're no. This animal is known for being very high orange.
Okay.
Um, And all the poster child, it's not a morph or anything like that. It's just specific line breeding
Right.
within carpets.
Who's it line? Whose line is it? Or who created this line? Produced
The
this line?
the person I know of that worked with it was what was that guy's name? I'd have to look at my notes from who produced my animal. I'm
Here,
trying
yeah.
to
No, that's okay. That's
trying to
yeah.
find stuff here. I have so many pictures. You know how it is trying to
Yeah,
scroll through
yeah.
stuff.
Scroll, snake, 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 frog, frog, frog.
Right. But the guy that produced
Hey, there you go.
my animal is no longer in the hobby.
Okay.
So it's unfortunate that he's not
Okay.
working with a lot of that stuff anymore. So I don't really know where a lot of the blood is. To be honest, I've honestly never seen more poster child blood. That could be because a lot of people are holding on to what they have. Um, Here we go. Okay. Okay, can I send you a picture to your Instagram?
Yes, that works. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Do this real quick. That took long enough.
No, no, I mean, It is pre-recorded, so I can always just go back and cut out
Oh,
certain
okay, I got
parts.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sending you a picture now. So that is poster child,
Okay.
and that is the grandfather um to the female that I have that produced my last clutch.
Wow. So you're technically working with the line now.
Yes, I have that blood in my collection. Yes.
That is very cool. Let me see if I can. I think I can share from somewhere other than online, right? Okay.
Oh, and I believe it was Mr. Matt Lacrosse that was doing a lot of work with the poster child stuff.
Okay. That
His name just hit me.
that name is familiar to
Um,
me. I don't know why
yeah,
or
he
how,
did.
but
He produced. So Matt, like I said, he's no longer in the hobby, which is very unfortunate. But Matt produced some absolutely, it was almost like he produced some really awesome animals and dropped off the face of the earth. And I'm talking like, when
yeah.
I say really awesome, I'm talking like some of the best poplin carpets captivity has seen, in my
Okay.
opinion. From
Wow.
the pictures that I have seen of his stuff, I don't know where it all went. I know for a fact some of it has passed on, like it died.
For sure.
One of the nicest IJs I've ever seen in my life belonged to a friend of mine. Actually, the guy I got this animal from, and
There we go.
it unfortunately passed away. But yes, that is poster child.
That
Not
is
the best
incredible.
picture, but it's the best one I had. That animal has almost no black on it.
You can,
Just
yeah, you
the
can really see the high orange, like you said. It's incredible. I've never seen a
yeah.
carpet look anything like that.
It almost looks hypo-ish. Obviously, I'm not gonna
Right.
say it's a hypo. Please God, nobody, stone me. It's not a hypo, but it has that hypo Darwin look. I don't know if anybody's seen the hypo Darwins coming out of Australia.
Yes. Yeah, you're
It
right.
has
Yeah.
that type of look to it. And that is just, I once I saw that animal, I was like, I have to have that blood. Like that is, incredible. It's the nicest looking carp I've ever seen in my life. And she produced, or he, I think post child was a male, I believe.
Okay.
He produced, you know, incredible animals. So I'm hoping to do the blood justice and bring out a lot of those yellows and oranges in there. And my girl is very high yellow, and I bred her and hit her to my highest yellow male to hopefully bring out more of that. And now the babies that they produced have all types of lines in them, and all very well known lines that they have just came out absolute screamers.
That's awesome. Are you
So
seeing the high orange and the high yellows in the babies already, or?
not yet. There's a few of them that are just the entire clutch is, I mean, insanely variable. The variability between each baby is
It's
incredible.
huge,
I
right?
essentially got three different phenotypes out of, the whole clutch. I had 9 eggs hatch and 10 babies because I got a set of twins.
Wow.
And
Oh, that's really
there's
cool.
like, yeah, it was really cool getting a set of twins. I know it's not great because the babies are a little weaker, and but they were fine.
Right.
They
But I
they
mean,
were
like for
definitely
to
on the
sorry, just to
good.
see it in person, like that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was really cool seeing two little heads poke out. Because I'm
Yeah.
sitting there watching the incubator the day they're hatching. Because when you're waiting on snakes to hatch, you can't help but look. Especially
Yeah, of
once you get
course.
around that 60-day mark, you're staring in the incubator every
Every few
day.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got the best thing to do if you're breeding snakes, is forget about them. Stick the eggs in the incubator. Do your best not to think about it.
It's
You'll
not even just
go
snakes,
insane.
all reptiles.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
But
kind of like a
no, it was
free
super
bonus
cool.
snake, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was so neat seeing those two little heads poke out. I was like, oh, got extra, and it was kind of cool because like one egg died. Well, it did. the egg went bad in during incubation. It was a bad egg. It got nasty in there and it never hatched. But I don't really separate eggs. Some people talk about mold, and the one bad egg was attached to two other eggs. And that egg was obviously disgusting. But it was attached to two others, and it had those two others had some stuff on them, but the eggs hatched just fine.
Okay,
I'm
that's
not a
awesome.
big proponent of separating eggs and cutting and all that. I pretty much take the pile and as is. We're playing God so much, with how we do
Right,
things. We're trying to keep these mini ecosystems and tubs all over our rooms and cages and doing
right.
all this stuff. But I do what I can to try to keep things at least somewhat natural. So I'm not going to sit there and take floss and separate every egg, because
Have you ever
that's
considered?
also why I really don't cut eggs, like, while they're hatching. I really don't slit eggs open. I might, if there's one left and I just want to see if it'll come out, I might cut, but I'm really not a big proponent of cutting eggs. Some people may not agree with me on that, but that's just me.
I think we
I've
know. I
also
think
haven't
everybody in the
had,
hobby knows somebody who
yeah,
doesn't agree with you.
yeah, exactly, right. But but with that said, I've never had a good egg not hatch.
Right.
So I say that now. "Oh, I'm not gonna cut, then the one day that one good egg's not hatching, I'm slicing it open like I'm freaking Jay Brewer, and no, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. Because that's disgusting. I'll just say that now. What he does to eggs is absolutely disgusting, but I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, that's who I was. I
Um,
think that's who I was referring to a couple of seconds ago.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
no, I agree. But no,
yeah.
so I'm the same thing. I'm not a big fan of cutting eggs, but every once in a while you're like, I really want to know, like, is there a chance? But at the same time, you're like survival of the fittest, right? Like if you're not surviving here, you wouldn't survive in the wild. You're probably a weaker individual. Like, so yeah,
And
there's
and
something to be said for that.
and that's my exact argument to it, is like, because getting out of your egg, that's the first action you make in during life. Like, that's your
Right.
first breath as a snake. And
Yeah.
it might sound kind of morbid, but if you can't do that, was it really meant to be? And people, I've had a lot of people look at me so sideways when I say that, but it's like, we do so much to make this happen, and it's like, at a certain point, I feel like we are taking it too far, and at a certain point, Mother Nature needs to make the calls, and even
Right.
though this isn't Mother Nature, this is my room, but it's still, to an extent, like, that's one of those things that, like, okay, I don't think Mother Nature would have wanted this snake to continue. It can't get out by itself. It's probably not going to eat well. It's going to be a pain in the ass
And then
for
you're
who
breeding
knows
it,
how
and or
long.
you're selling it to someone else who's going to breed it, and you're just introducing those weaker genes into the lines. And I absolutely agree
Exactly, and
with
that
you.
and that that's
I
my and that's my other thing, and that's my other thing is proponing the good feeders. Breeding a good feeder to a good feeder. Those are traits that get passed on. Everybody looks at all these colors and patterns and stuff, and yeah, of course, we all want to make the prettiest, coolest looking snake out there. A lot of people don't think about the feeding response of some of these animals, and how their attitudes are, and and all this stuff, and it all goes into play into their babies. All those traits, all those things can get passed on, and that's not saying your terrible feeding carpet's going to produce a bunch of terrible feeding babies. I'm not saying that will happen, but I think your chances are more likely.
Yeah,
you
no,
know
that makes sense. So you think that traits like feeding response, how friendly they are, how nippy they are, you think all these things can be kind of bred?
I think they can. Obviously,
Exceptions and whatnot.
there's exceptions always, especially in carpet pythons. Your babies are almost never happy. Baby
Yeah,
carpet
for sure.
pythons are dicks. They're
Yeah.
they're a lot of them are terrible. But occasionally you get more that are, like I said, my clutch this year, it was pretty much split in half on no attitude and attitude.
Attitude, okay.
I actually may have a few more width and attitude. I have a handful. I have a handful. I can reach right in. They might nip me because they think they're getting food. But other than that, once they're out of the cage, nothing.
It's a
But I've
feeding
got
response.
some, exactly. But I have some that won't stop. And
Okay.
like period. They'll be on the hook and they'll be they're just going at me, and
Yeah.
so it's hard to say, as far as ag goes, I do think it can be something that's passed on. I definitely think feeding response, and just good feeding animals, I think that gets passed on for sure. That attribute can get passed on a lot easier. But well, as far as carpets go, feeding really isn't much of a issue usually.
Not at
So
all. No. Yeah.
I've
They have.
produced I've produced like 19 carpets in my two clutches that I've had, and all 19 ate the very first time offered frozen thawed.
Wow.
Yeah, so
And did you have to put them
I
on
can't.
live first or straight
Nope,
away on frozen thought? So that was okay. That was so
straight
that was
away
their first
frozen
meal.
thawed.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've kind of developed a system for carpets because it's worked so well for me. As far as like the first meal. So what I do for a first meal is I don't sit there. A lot of people will try, the bare minimum, a freshly thawed fuzzy, and just stick it in front of them, see if they go.
Yeah.
I take it a little bit farther for their first one just to entice them a little bit more. So what I do is I take a fuzzy and I dry it off a lot, like completely dry, because when it's completely dry, more scent particles will get out there.
Okay.
So I dry it off completely, make sure it's no toughness or whatsoever,
Oh,
and then I
we're
take the
losing you there.
skin of the nose. What's that?
Sorry, I just lost you for a second. I think. Could you say the last part
Uh,
again?
I was saying, so you make sure you get a fuzzy completely dry, and then once it's completely dry, I take the tip of the nose and I just rip some skin off of it. I don't brain it like poke it like you do with a pinky, but I just take the skin on the nose and just rip it and leave a bare patch of skin right there on the nose, and that gets a little bit more of those scent particles out there for them. And I've been 19 for 19, very first try, 2 days after a first shed of carpet pythons. So that's the other thing. I wait till they all shed. I don't even offer them food until they've shed, had that first shed after hatching. And then, after that shed, following that routine with that feeding, like I said, 19 for 19, no problems, So,
That's awesome.
again, that's only two clutches. That's all I've produced. So, it's not that good of numbers in retrospect. But for me, hey, it's been great.
100%
I
success
can't
rate.
complain. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't really complain.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what have you ever considered leaving the eggs in and letting the female do the incubation, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's actually moving forward. I plan on that being my main form of incubation. I have
Interesting.
a very nice sea serpents incubator that I used the last time I had a clutch. I love it. It's a fantastic product. But as far as pythons go, my as long as everybody's up to par, and I really hope that I I say all this stuff in hopes that I keep this mindset moving forward. I don't want to breed a female if I don't think she could maternally incubate, because you have those some animals like, she was too skinny to maternal, so I pulled them. So
Yeah.
I don't, if she might be too skinny to maternally incubate, I'm probably not going to breed her type deal, So that's what I want to
Right.
do moving forward, and then make maternal incubation my main form of incubation, and then only use artificial if, the snake ditches the eggs, because you do have, snakes that aren't really good moms, especially their first seasons. A lot of
For
first time
sure.
breeders, they either won't breed, they don't really know what they're doing. So maternal incubation can be just, an extra harder step for a non-seasoned breeder. But anybody who's got a season or two under the belt, I plan to do pretty much all maternal incubation and only artificially incubate when they ditch the eggs. So at least that's the plan. I really hope I can stick with it because I don't plan on breeding pretty much anything back to back years. I would really like to give, my females every other year off. Because there's no sense in, making them go every year. Going more than 2 years in a row can be very detrimental.
Of course.
So if you're gonna do more than 1, 2 years in a row, give them a year off. But my plan is to do, one on, one off, and yeah. So
Oh,
that'll
for sure.
be,
And then so I mean, that first of all goes back to like breeding the best possible, like the strongest animal, right? Like when in these circumstances, only the strongest will actually survive. So you're getting the best like quality carpets out of them, right? But then,
Yeah, yeah, because
no, sorry, go
okay.
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's that's part of the cool thing about maternal incubation is it's proven that babies come out more robust with better feeding responses, and I'm not gonna say better hatch rates because I don't know that for a fact, but it is very apparent that babies are easier to start when they're maternally incubated. So that's another thing, talking about, being a proponent of having, good feeding babies, the likelihood of having a lot more of those can come, with maternal incubation,
Right.
but again, with all that said, maternal incubation isn't for everybody, and it's certainly not for every snake. It isn't the easiest task. You do have to monitor them a little better. It is harder on the female, but it is also what they do in the wild. So if you think they're not capable of it, you're just wrong,
Yeah.
But I understand why people don't want to. But since I'm not somebody that wants to breed a female back-to-back years, I don't mind maternally incubating. Because if you do maternally incubate, you can pretty much kiss the next season goodbye,
Yeah.
because that adds, because that's why a lot of people don't maternally incubate, because they say, oh, that's, 2 months that I could be putting food back on them for the
Hmm.
next season. Yeah,
Right.
that's 100%.
Oh, I think you cut out again.
Oh, oh, there you go. You're my back.
Yes, you
You
are.
got me
Yeah, yeah,
back?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. That makes 100% sense. And then, so when the babies hatch, does the mom ever go after them, or are you just immediately in there pulling them out?
well, I've never maternally incubated. I've only done artificial for my two, and so I mean that's but I haven't. I don't know about babies, coming out being in there. So
Yeah, just running around all over the place. Well, you'll have to
yeah,
let us know
I can
once
only
you do it how
imagine
it
that.
goes. Yeah,
Yeah, I can only imagine that if you have a decorated cage. Good God, I've heard of people finding, because you have those live bears, and I've heard of people
yeah.
finding baby snakes for 2 weeks, because they just keep popping up, and
I've
so
had it happen with
it's
geckos.
fun.
It's yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, so you know really well then, because I'm sure it's even harder with geckos, man.
You come up to the
Whew.
cage and you see something moving, and you're like, the female's over there. What's moving in the corner? And you just what? And then
Yeah,
you see the bag, like, okay. Okay,
yeah.
cool. So then maybe jumping off Morelia, what finally getting to that question, why the switch from JLB Morelia to I mean like to Longleaf Reptilia, and not specifically like why did you change the name, but like it seems like you went from keeping strictly carpets to more and more colubrids, and you kind of want to work with
Mm,
colubrids more now, and that's
yeah.
possibly why the name changed, correct? Okay, so why
Yeah,
colubrids? It seems
so
like everybody's getting into them. What's the? I want to understand why.
for me, I'm I've been in the hobby for, a while. I've been keeping snakes going on 13 years ish. But I've only been, in the hobby seriously since about 2016, and then much more heavily in 2017.
Cool.
Um, and colubrids were kind of my start. Colubrids were what started my love of snakes, because they were the first interaction I had with snakes, and they were also the first snakes I caught. We have, living in South Carolina, we are blessed to have, several different species of snakes. We have dozens of different species of snakes here. And
And I have a
so
whole list of
I,
questions for you about finding them in the wild.
yeah, for
We'll
sure,
get to
for
that.
sure. But so colubrids were kind of my start, and I was into them at first, kind of in the beginning of just like having snakes and enjoying them. I had some hognose snakes, I had some corn snakes. I loved them. But as I got older, I got into the mindset of, pythons are cool. Pythons are the cool thing, and so I got into carpets a little bit, and I had colubrids for a long time. It was only a couple years ago that I got out of them completely. for a very short time. But when we first started the podcast, I still had a couple. And then as we grew through the podcast, I needed to downsize a little bit, and I wanted to focus mostly on Morelia. So I pretty much sold everything that wasn't a carpet python, and kept strictly carpets for a while. I got a scrub because I do have a scrub python as well.
Right.
But yeah, so I kept those for a while, and Justin got into some colubrids, or he always had some, and it was fun seeing his again, and I started talking to more and more people with colubrids, and became really good friends with more and more people with colubrids, and I'm like, I kind of want some more, and
Time
because
to get
like when
back into
I was
colubrids.
exactly, and it's so funny how this all came about because like whenever I like was first getting into snakes, morphs were it was all morphs, and I was with it, like morphs are the thing, I didn't even know what selective breeding was,
Yeah.
I had never even heard of that, I didn't even know the concept of it, and
Right.
so I was all morphs, 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 morphs. Even when I first got into carpet pythons, that's what I was going for. I had an xanthic project, I had some granite stuff, and but then I just kind of fell in love with wild type carpet pythons and found out about, this whole selective breeding side of things. And it just really fascinated me that I could be basically towards creating something that almost looks like a morph, but is natural. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my eyes created this essentially, me choosing two animals created this, masterpiece here. Which, so that thought process was really cool to me. So I kind of got out of morphs altogether, and I was, working with, wild type carpets, which is still what I do today. I have no morph carpets whatsoever. Everything is completely wild type. Um, and then so having that, so I was in the carpets for several years, kind of focusing on, or for a couple years, strictly focusing on that. And then I got into, or then I started seeing more and more of these colubrids and seeing a lot of locality stuff. And 'cause that's another thing I'm really into is locality animals. And so I started seeing all these
Yeah.
locality rat snakes, and I'm like, oh man, there's all kinds, because I never thought about just the state by state and county by county how different these things can be, man. Like night and day differences, and it fascinated me, and I realized that the rat snake world was kind of right up my alley with the carpets, because there's a lot of selective breeding potential. There's a lot of locality stuff to do, and rat snakes have always been my favorite, local animals, rat snakes and Morelia. And so I just, I wanted rat snakes for a while. I was sitting on it for about a year of wanting colubrids, and I snagged a pair of white oak Apalachicola gray rat snakes, which I absolutely love those animals. They're probably my favorite rat snakes in my collection right now. And then I had those for probably about a year as my only colubrids, and I sat on them, really enjoyed them, and then that kind of gets into the longleaf reptilia changeover. I had about, anybody who follows, the herpetoculture podcast knows I was off the show for about a year.
Right.
Took a year off, stepped away from the hobby, and looked at a lot of my own stuff, and was dealing with a lot of personal life things. So I was kind of out of the hobby. I wasn't expanding at all. I was just kind of keeping what I had. And then a big change happened, and I kind of had to reevaluate some things, and change a lot of things, and my life was going to be changing a lot, and as I knew it, and I knew with that my collection was going to change. I was finally going to get into colubrids. That was pretty much the top of my list, was with this big change. Was all right, I'm getting into my colubrids now. I've been
Priority
sitting
new
on this.
snakes.
Exactly. That was number one. I'm buying snakes. So, I'm pretty sure like after 2 days, I'd spent like, yeah, I had like three snakes coming in the mail. It was great.
Yeah.
But So that was, kind of at the top of things I wanted to do was work on my colubrid collection because it was something I had been sitting on for a year, and I've been thinking about it, daily for, a year. It was all the stuff I wanted, these colubrid projects. And the time came where I could, and I was like, okay, this is it. And I pretty much doubled my collection with colubrids. Now I actually have more colubrids than I have carpet python. So, which is really weird to say to me because I had carpets for so long, and it's like now I just have so many, colubrids. It's crazy. But with the longleaf reptilia change, the I really liked JLB Morelia. It rolled off the tongue very well. Everybody knew me as that. I was established as
I
that.
was very
I
used to
spent
it. It took me a while
yes,
to get used to
yeah.
Longleaf
Everybody was.
Reptilia.
Yeah, nobody knew. I'm sure there's still a lot of people who just think I disappeared or like there's no more JLB Morelia. But it's just it seemed very centralized, like Morelia specific, and I kind of wanted to get away from the initial thing simply because I feel like everybody uses their initials or their name, and I don't know something about. I wanted different because my life was changing so much, and like I was like I need something different. I need
Fresh
fresh. I
start.
need new.
Yeah,
Exactly. I
absolutely.
really wanted a fresh start, and I was like, let's rebrand, and I threw around a lot of different ideas about some stuff, off some friends, and I one day I was just sitting there and it just rolled off. I said longleaf reptilia. I didn't want to use exotics. I didn't want to use reptiles. All the stuff everybody else used. So I was like, I want to use reptilia. That sounds cool. And I'm like, okay, what can flow with that? And the whole longleaf thing was so I have a degree in forestry and wildlife management. I'm a big
That's awesome.
wildlife advocate. I could do forestry work. I love trees. I love nature.
That's awesome.
Um, and so timber cruising was a big thing I did in college. So I spent a lot of time looking at pine trees and stuff like
Nice.
that. So I did a lot of that and, learned a lot about longleaf pine stands. And, I threw around some stuff because, in South Carolina, I was trying to think of something, to South Carolina specifically. And, we have a lot of live oaks here. Park, I can't think of anything with trees. I would go with this. Then longleaf hit me, and I was like, longleaf reptilia, and I liked it because longleaf pine stands, they're some of my favorite areas to herp if you can find them. And they inhabit some just incredible, animals on top of plants. You can find pitcher plants, in longleaf pine stands. You find all types of snakes. You find indigo snakes, pine snakes, inhabit these things. Red cockaded woodpeckers, an endangered species of woodpecker
That's
only
awesome.
inhabits longleaf pines. So they're a very specific ecosystem that takes care of a lot of threatened or endangered things, and so they mean a lot to me. Those stands because I love herping them, and it's just something that near and dear to me. And it just rolled off the tongue so well when I said it, and I liked it immediately. I had a couple people that are like, and I'm like, no, you know what? Screw you. I like it. I'm going with it.
Yeah, I remember the
So
episode where
I,
you and Justin, I think Phil was on it as well, and you guys were going back and forth about the names, and you said it, and I was
yeah.
like, yeah, that I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks, man. No, I
yeah,
actually had it was all the feed. It was actually after that episode. It was all the good feedback I had. That is why I went with it. Because I was about to ditch it and be like, because I was honestly getting more negative
yeah.
from it, but then more people said it over and over, and then like people heard why I chose the long leaf thing, being a more personalized thing, and everybody was like, okay, okay, it's pretty legit, it works.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've kind of rolled with it. I haven't gotten tired of saying it, it's going, and I still love it. I've got different ideas for a logo in the future,
Nice.
when I can get some really good professional work done. And yeah, I kind of threw something together for a logo just to have, and I really like what's there. And I'm gonna ride that out for a while. I really like it. Phil Wolf designed it,
Nice.
and then I had a graphic artist buddy of mine, kind of draw it up for me. So I'm happy with it. I like definitely like the name change, and yeah, it's flowing with everything really well, I think. And that's again, the whole longleaf thing. It also goes into my field herping, obsession, and
Yeah.
that that's a whole other can of worms. I'm doing a lot more of that nowadays. Not as much now because it's getting a little cold. But that was another thing I got heavily back into with my big change was field herping. I was on the roads for almost daily for a couple months there.
I
So
noticed this, and I also noticed actually something that I wanted to bring up later on. But since we're talking about this, I also noticed that you're now doing photography and you're selling your prints of the snakes you're capturing in the wild.
yeah, I'm trying to. I really didn't get any, sales from that. I think I had one or two people buy a couple prints, which is fine. I just
Baby
threw it out
steps.
there just to see. Yeah, I just wanted to see if anybody would want some. I needed, a little extra because I was trying to, buy some cages, or I was trying to buy some racks or something, and
Yeah.
I needed some extra cash. So I just threw it out there to see if anybody interested.
Do you
So
ship to
that's not
Canada?
something. What's I probably can.
Yeah.
I would have
Okay.
to because basically how I'm doing it is I have a website or not a website. Well, I guess it is a website. It's an app on my phone that I get all my prints from. I order my personal prints from there.
Cool.
Um, so basically, what I'm doing is, going on there, billing it to myself, but shipping it to whoever
Whoever.
wants one,
Okay.
and so it gets shipped straight from the company. So I don't see why Canada would be out of the question, So if
That's
you're
awesome.
at all interested, I can certainly look into it.
I definitely am, and if anyone
Um,
else is who's listening
yeah.
to this, go get some prints. Um,
Hey man, all about it. I got them on deck, ready to go.
yeah.
But
All right. So little about the longleaf forest and herping in the wild. Because we don't have many species up here. So I'm always seeing these videos or just hearing you guys talk about like road cruising or find like just herping for locales in general. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, first of all, how easy is it to actually find the snake when you're out there? Because I'm always like, are they just walking out there and are they just in their face, or are you spending like 6 hours out there and seeing one snake? Like, should I feel better or should I stay jealous?
It really depends on the day, man. I can tell you I've spent way more hours on the roads and in the woods than I have finding snakes.
Snakes. Okay.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
there's way more hours to
Right.
the snake numbers than you can imagine. But man, it really depends on the day, me, if I'm really like, I'm all about it and I'm going pretty much no matter what. And when you're doing that, you have a lot more days that you don't get anything,
Right.
but when you do, it's great, but you also have days to where you only go at certain time frames, or certain, during certain weather conditions,
Right.
and in those days, it's great, so, there's been nights that on the same road on one night, I found 14 snakes in,
Wow.
2 hours, but on that same road, I have found no snakes in 3 hours, but it's all based on weather conditions and everything, and so it depends on the day, the time of year, me, I like going, your best time to herp, at least for me, again, I'm speaking from South Carolina. Okay, that's where I've done pretty much all of my herping. I did a good bit
South
in
Carolina.
Texas when I lived at, yeah, South Carolina.
Yeah.
That's where I've done, a large majority. I've done a good bit in Texas. When I was living out there, I lived out there for 6 months. Um,
That must have been awesome.
and I've done a little bit in Florida. I've made a couple trips out there to go look for some
Yeah.
stuff. But again, most of my experience comes from South Carolina. So
Right.
my favorite times of year to herp, or the best times of year to herp, are spring and fall, mostly because springtime, everything's just waking up. Everything's getting going, everything's coming out of their burrows, and they're hungry.
Everyone's
So
looking for
they're going to
food.
be moving. And that's also when they're breeding. So they're going to start eating, they're going to start breeding. they're on the move. Pretty much if it's springtime around here and it rains, I you won't find me at home. It's the bit that I follow, and that's the other thing. I follow the rain. And then with the fall, it's kind of the same deal. Things are packing on food to try and eat before they got to go down for the winter, and you also have those weird transitions. So those types of times of years are my favorite for road cruising, and part of that is because it's good when the perfect, at least to me, the perfect time of year is when it gets nice and warm during the day, but gets, in the low 70s at
At
night,
night. Okay.
because
Right.
it cool low 70s, it's cool enough, to get them, it's just cool enough to get them out on the road to warm up. They'll come out
Right.
onto the blacktop because it's still holding that heat. So they'll come out to get warmth, and that low 70s just gets everything pushing and moving, and then follow the rain patterns. Pretty much if I've got a storm, if I know a storm's pushing through, I'm going out usually before the storm, right before the storm. Sometimes during, there's one time actually twice I went during a rainstorm and I made out, dude. I'm like, it was insane. I've
Yeah.
never found so many snakes, and then it was pouring down. Right, it was terrible. So I didn't take any pictures because
Right.
couldn't take my phone out because it was pouring rain. But man, I think I found five banded water snakes, close to 10 ribbon snakes, two cottonmouths and five copperheads. It's
Wow.
ridiculous. On this one stretch of road, it's literally. I drive down a couple miles, turn around, and come back, and I can find.
And you do
I
this for how
probably
long?
it depends on the night. If it's not going well, I'll do it for an hour, hour and a half. I'm like, all
You
right,
just you don't drive around like you this one section. You just keep going back and forth and
well, this is it. It depends. Yeah, that's my favorite road. That's
okay,
my
okay,
favorite road
yeah,
because it's probably my least traveled road. Well, not my least traveled road because I do go to WMAs as well. But as far as public, a public road, that's probably the least traveled one. And it's literally from where I'm staying now. It's 10 minutes up the road, so it's not far from me at all. I've been going there for years, and it
okay.
produces a lot of variety. Just a lot of stuff. So
That's
it's one of my frequent flyers for sure.
crazy.
Definitely a go-to. But because that's mostly what I do as far as field herping. I might be a little lazy with it, but I do a lot of road cruising. Especially those times of years, because it's productive. You find a lot of stuff road cruising.
And they don't
Some
like
people
fly off
don't.
the road when the car comes down.
Sometimes, yeah,
Right.
it definitely sometimes, and you get really good at it. If
Yeah.
you road cruise enough, like me, I've learned to pretty much, distinguish a piece of, a pine needle from, an earth snake.
Or
They're
or
both
a toad or something.
that
Yeah.
long, but and they're the
Yeah.
same color essentially, but there's little things that you've learned to see from in between. So you do have the chance to hit snakes, especially small ones that look like
Mm.
sticks. You'd
Are you
see a
driving
lot
super slow?
more. Yes, yeah. I mean, it depends on super, and again, it depends on the day. If it's pouring down rain, I'm seeing snakes left and right. Yeah, I'm going 15, 20 miles an hour down that sucker, just putting. But if it's been really slow and it's been clear out, I'm not even seeing any frogs, then I'll speed it up a little bit and try and go around because that's another big thing. If I don't see frogs, I almost don't waste my time.
There's not. They're not
For
out hunting.
Yeah, that's because I don't know what it is, but like when the frogs are moving, the snakes are usually moving. Now frogs move a little more into the colder weather. I've seen frogs moving in the lower 60s and stuff around here, and but around then I normally don't see snakes. The frogs stay a little bit more active into the
Right.
winter. But yeah, as far as like spring and fall, the frogs. If there's frogs bouncing everywhere, it's a very good sign you're probably gonna find some snakes. And the area that I cruise has, or at least that area of I cruise, I'm pretty much everywhere around my area is wet. We live
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
coast. We have rivers, and my side of Beaufort is brackish water, so it's kind of a mixture of salt and fresh for anybody who doesn't know what brackish
Right.
means. So it can inhabit saltwater fish as well as freshwater fish. It's kind of cool. So you get a lot of the snakes that inhabit freshwater and all the freshwater frogs and all the stuff all through the area. But yeah, so that's road cruising, and then I also go to WMAs, which is anybody doesn't know what that is, called a wildlife management area. So basically, like some we have the ones we have here can there's some private ones, and then there's some that are public. You can just go to during certain times of the year. But they're also wildlife management areas, so normally they are hunting areas as well. So there are certain seasons and times of the year that you can't. Luckily, most of those seasons are during the winter,
Yeah.
so it really doesn't take out
You
much
don't
for
cross
herping
over.
for me,
Hmm.
right? Until turkey season comes around. Turkey season is springtime or summer. I can't remember. I think it's August. No, before August. But so turkey season kind of cuts into my WMA time, but that's really it. And I've got one here that this is I go to WMAs when I don't want to road cruise. Um, Pretty much because at least around here, there really isn't a lot of just like public woods. You know what I mean? Like you can't just walk into a patch of woods or you're probably going to get shot because it's somebody's property.
Right.
Everybody owns property around here. And
Right.
if you're from around here, not to trespass. It does
Okay.
not get you very far. So you got to be really careful about where you're going because that's another thing, I like to push to field herpers is because there's a running joke around running jokes about people trespassing just looking for your special
You say
snake
snake.
and
Yeah.
somebody telling about going over that fence and you wait 5 minutes for them to walk away and you hop over.
Yeah.
I really try to push to not do that because it makes us look bad.
For
People who
sure.
really enjoy herping and do it for more than just it's a lifestyle for me. So
Yeah,
I
it's a passion. It's
and
like
I
exactly a lifestyle. Exactly. Yeah.
exactly it's a
Hmm.
passion, it's a lifestyle. It means a lot to me. So I take it very seriously of no trespassing whatsoever. Always have permission on everything and or go to
Sure.
public land. So I frequent WMAs because it's public. If the gate's open, you can go in. No questions asked. So I frequent one here quite a bit, and yeah, it's been that one has been very, very productive over the last 2 years that I've been going there. I have found everything from, you know, 7, 8 inch garter snakes to I finally found my lifer mud snake last year, which was about 6 foot long, which
That is
was
awesome.
freaking incredible.
Yeah.
I almost cried, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I probably would have. Yeah, honestly.
I'm telling you, man, it was incredible. I was jumping up and down. I didn't even touch it for like 5 minutes because I was just, it was just, like, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, definitely one of my one of my craziest finds to date. Because finding a mud snake is one thing, and I had never found one. I actually hit a baby when I was in college, which you talk
Yeah.
about almost crying.
Yeah.
Huh. That would have been my lifer, but I hit it and I killed it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine found one on the road that, I cruise a lot. Him and I used to go there a lot. He's a herpetologist. He used to live here in the Outer Banks now. Um,
Awesome.
but he went out with me one day because we had been hitting this road looking for mud snakes. And he went out without me one day with a different friend and he found one and I was pissed.
It's
So
always when
I
you're not
got to
there.
hand, yeah, of course. So he calls me, of course, like, dude, we found one. So I'm like, all right. So I went out there and I looked at it, took some pictures of it and stuff. Thought it was awesome, but like, I didn't. It wasn't mine. I didn't
You
find it.
didn't
It wasn't
find it.
there. Yeah. I saw it. I saw it, but yeah, that doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
And I was walking back from I had just gotten off a cross dike, walking between two bodies of water, going to some woods, because basically this is the WMA I go to is a waterfowl management area. It's a wildlife management area, but they do a lot of
Focus on
waterfowl hunting,
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they have a lot of flooded areas, a lot of areas that they control the flooding with and whatnot. So there's a lot of water around. So if you know mud snakes, obviously mud snakes, they stay around wetlands.
Mud.
Wasn't expecting it at all. Yeah, I had literally walked, dude. I had probably walked 2 miles. I had been going all over the place. I was coming back. I was 50 feet from my car. 50 feet from my car, walking up to it, and there's just this massive mud snake just laying in the middle of the path, and I just lost it. I was jumping up and down like a little schoolgirl, and just freaking out.
That's
It was
amazing.
awesome. It was great. And that's why I love field herping, man. Nothing gets my juices flowing like finding a target species or finding anything really, man. I still get excited to chase a black racer. It's
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. 100%. So when you said you found 14 snakes in one night on that one road, I've been in Canada for I think 6 or 7 years now, and I haven't found 14 snakes in total. So I'm definitely gonna have
oh
to come down to
man.
South Carolina and do some herping with you guys.
Yeah, dude,
Definitely.
absolutely. I can put you on a lot of stuff. And that's what's cool
Oh,
about our area of South Carolina is we also have a lot of barrier islands, so like, and most of them are pretty much accessible by car, everything, a bridge leads everywhere
right,
around here, so
right.
we have a lot of different habitat and a lot of different, roads to go through, and the variability, is just incredible. Even on that road I was telling you about, the one I cruise a lot. That night I was out during a storm. I was finding banded water snakes, and I'll have to send you a picture later of these two that I found literally within a mile of each other. I found one, and then less than a mile later, I found this other one. They're both banded water snakes. One was bright red, almost a brick color. The other one was almost jet black.
Like complete different.
Yeah,
Wow.
completely different. But this is the same stretch of road within a mile. If you didn't know snakes, you wouldn't know those were the same snake at all. Like there was
Yeah.
nothing that looked. The patterns were different, the colors were different. You wouldn't have known. But they were both banded water snakes, and just the variability, man, is just it's incredible. And especially with Nerodia. Nerodia are just so variable, but that's a whole other
Yeah,
topic.
I don't know much about them, but I've been hearing a lot more about them and been doing a little bit of research, and they are beautiful, beautiful animals. I agree.
They're super cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
For now,
In
man.
that case, thank you very much for coming on, man. I
Yeah.
want to go long. I like to keep them around 45. We just went a little bit over, but I had to hear about the field herping. Like seeing you guys' pictures every time you guys are out, or just hearing about it on the Herpetoculture podcast. I FOMO very hard. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Sorry, I talk a lot. Having my own podcast is a little easier to talk, so I get all my rants and stuff too. So I
you know what?
apologize for keeping you a little longer, but
Not at all. Justin said the same thing. It's funny, but I told him it's easier to have guests to talk than to kind of drag. Like, I mean, we were talking about that as well. It's no, you were great. I thank
yeah,
you so much for coming on.
yeah,
I
man.
really do appreciate it. Can you
I
let everybody
appreciate you for
know?
having me, man.
Yeah, for sure. Can you let everybody know where they can find you? I mean, we said Longleafreptilia at which times, but maybe one more time, engrave it in there.
Yeah. You can add me on Facebook. It's changed up from Longleaf real quick. You add me on Facebook under just Jacob Bratz if you want. Add me. I haven't been on there very much lately. In case anybody's noticed, I'm sorry. I'm working 2 jobs, and
I actually
the
don't think
snakes
we're.
basically make a third job. So I really haven't been on social media a lot lately, and I do apologize to anybody. On that front. But you can add me on Facebook. Other than that, Facebook, Instagram, you can follow me at Longleaf Reptilia. No underscore, no dots, no nothing. Just Longleaf Reptilia. You'll find me. Instagram will probably be the best one. I'm on there more than anything. I haven't posted in several weeks, but yeah, you can go look at some of the stuff I'm working with. I haven't even posted half of the colubrids I own currently. So this episode. You're gonna look at my Instagram. Like, God, does have bloopers? I do. I just haven't posted them a lot. I gotta get life a little simpler before I get back to Instagram. I just need to get back on Instagram. I've been really bad about taking pictures. Yeah.
You know what? I'm the same thing, man. If I don't pre-plan for like a week or two, like we're like, okay, I'm posting all this in the next 2 weeks. I won't end up posting. I know it's a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
feel
that's
that.
why whenever I take pictures, I try to take like 20 of like each
Each
animal. So like I've just got a stack of them for I can just all right, let's post this one
you're ready to go, and then you can alternate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I just added you on Facebook because we weren't connected, first of all. But thank you very
Oh
much once
wow, I
again.
can't believe that.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Yeah,
And yeah,
cool.
sweet. I will have my information and your information in the show notes for everybody. Go follow him once again, Longleafreptilia, Jacob Bratz. Thank you very much for coming on. And I am
Yes,
Daffy's
sir.
Reptiles, Daffy's Roundtable for the podcast. We will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
See y'all later. Thank you.